Welcome to the Cocktail Spirit from Small Screen Network. I'm your host, Robert Hess. Now, for my fans out there, you remember that a while back we did a cocktail called the Caprice Cocktail. In the comments, someone said, gee, it's the same ingredients as the Ford cocktail. What's the difference? Well, the difference is all in the ratios, and we're going to focus on that today. Now, the Ford cocktail, the first reference I could find came from Modern American Drinks by George Capeller. Now, again, modern 1895, it's not quite modern the way we think of it. Back in that days, modern was modern because it's always, what you think. And personally myself, I always love going to these old cocktail books and looking at cocktails because it almost makes me feel like I'm traveling through time to discover some of the drinks that they were drinking back then. Now, the ingredients for both the Caprice and the Ford are gin, dry vermouth, Benedictine, and orange bitters. But with the Ford, we're going to take a look how those ratios are slightly different than they were in the Caprice. So we're going to start off with 1 ounce of gin. And 1 ounce of dry vermouth. The recipe in Modern American Drinks called for half a jigger of each. So it's basically saying equal parts. So you can take and scale this up. But you remember, half a jigger back in those days was 1.5 ounces. And so half a jigger, 3/4 of an ounce, it was a very small drink. So even boosting it up to a full ounce makes it still a small drink. And that just kind of shows you the amount of cocktail sizes they had back in those days. They were fairly small, not those big 7, 8, 9 ounce things that we have now in many of the cocktail bars. So I highly recommend getting some old small cocktail glasses that are more the size that they had back in those days so you can have several drinks in an evening. Now next we're going to go with the Benedictine and the orange bitters. Now both of these we're going to use 3 dashes. And so you notice the Benedictine doesn't have a dasher top like the orange bitters does. So what I recommend doing is first doing the orange bitters, and when you're doing that, get kind of a visual reference to how much product is going in. 1, 2, 3. So we kind of saw there visually. Now, if a bartender is going to know inherently what's going on, but as a home cocktail maker, people may not quite understand what 3 dashes is. And so what you can do is use a nice small bar spoon like I like using, and just very carefully pour it off. Now, by pouring slowly, if by chance some of it dribbles off the side of the bar spoon, like that, I can control it and say, well, gee, that was almost 3 dashes, so I'm just add a little teeny bit more, and then I'm going to dump the rest. So you can kind of control and make sure no errors come in, because Benedictine has a lot of flavor to it, so you don't want to have too much to it. If after tasting you think you can use more, you can add more, but you can't ever take it out. Now we're going to add the ice. It's always important to stir enough so you get a well-chilled drink, and also make sure you pre-chill your glass with some water, some ice as well. Now the garnish for this is a twist of orange peel. So I'm going to take and use a channel knife and a nice fresh orange to take and get the orange zest made. Now I'm doing this again over top of the glass so that any oils that come off are going to go into the glass itself. And then I use a little stir rod to wrap the orange peel around. Helps it add a nice little curl to it, kind of get it twist tight. You don't want to twist too tight or the orange peel will actually break. Twist it a bit, pull it off, wrap one end over the edge, and there we have the Ford cocktail. The equal parts dry vermouth and gin really add an interesting character to it. So it's kind of like a martini because the orange bitters is obviously something you use in a martini. The Benedictine's kind of not normal, but that's adding an interesting kind of flavor spice in the background. But the gin and the dry vermouth are really standing head and shoulders above both the Benedictine and the orange bitters. The fact I'm using a 50-50 ratio is making a martini very similar to what the original dry martini would have tasted like. So if you like martinis, especially classic old world martinis, I think the Ford cocktail is an excellent drink to add to your repertoire.